This year, the Indy cars have defined excitement. Has been chosen. Today is the final race of the year. Reputations are on the line, and the outcome is anybody's guess.
No, it's more than that. From the magnificent Laguna Seca Raceway, it's the Toyota Monterey Grand Prix featuring the Makita 300 for the Indy cars. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and you see how they put my name in there? That's part of the new look of ESPN2 that debuted this weekend, and the IndyCar race was part of that debut. We'll have a bit of that look throughout the show today, so keep an eye on it. Now, to the race itself, the last race of the season for the Indy cars on a circuit that can be difficult.
That's right. There's no doubt that Laguna Seca is one of the most unique racetracks, not just in America, but in the world of motorsports, mainly because of its dramatic elevation changes. From the bottom to the top of the corkscrew, it's actually 14 stories high. Now, this afternoon, well, without any championship to be fought over, I think drivers may be tempted to just make that extra bold move. Now, that brings one of the problems. If you actually get offline here, there is so much gravel and sand and loose dirt, you can easily drag that dirt back onto the racing line. And then your problem suddenly becomes everybody else's following behind.
Let's take a look at the 29 cars in the starting grid. On the pole is Emerson Fittipaldi, his 15th career pole with a new track record. Alongside his teammate Paul Tracy, the winner of 4 races this year, all on road courses. In row 2, it's Nigel Mansell, the new IndyCar champion, and Danny Sullivan, who won this event in '88, again in '90. In row 3 is Arie Luyendyk, with his best start on a road course all year, and Mario Andretti, 4 times a runner-up in this event. In row 4, Stefan Johansson, who finished 3rd in Vancouver, and Mauricio Gugelmin, the first top 10 start for the Brazilian rookie. In row 5, Scott Goodyear, a runner-up in Nazareth 2 weeks ago, and Bobby Rahal, a 4-time winner of the Monterey Grand Prix. In the 6th row is Teo Fabi, who won the first running here back in 1983, and Al Unser Jr., who won in Vancouver a month ago. In row 7, Raul Boisel, who has 3 runner-up finishes this season, and Robbie Gordon, who ran 2nd at Mid-Ohio. In the 8th row, Scott Brayton, with 5 top 10 efforts this year, and Jimmy Vasser, who finished 3rd in Phoenix in April. In the 9th row, Mark Smith, the freshman from Oregon, and Scott Pruitt. In the 10th row, Eddie Cheever and Brian Till. Row 11, Willie T. Ribbs and Didier Taves. In the 12th row, Scott Sharp and Mexican Adrian Fernandez. The 13th row, Robbie Buell and German Christian Danner. The 14th row, Hiro Matsushita and Olivier Griard. And alone in last position is Dominic Dobson. Looking back from Nigel Mansell, the new IndyCar champion, and his car, as the rest of the field as they come behind him. Onboard camera in Danny Sullivan's car as well. Still very foggy skies out behind that machine. Al Unser Jr.'s car looking backwards from his machine. Some of the onboard views we'll have today over the right-hand shoulder of Scott Goodyear, and you see Stefan Johansson come past as he is still seeking out his qualifying position and no doubt wondering a little bit about whether or not the repair is total and effective. And not the world's greatest picture, but still we'll clean it up and you'll have a shot from Raul Boisel's car as well, one of those in the fight for points here today that could mean so much money and in fact prestige.
There is so much at stake here. You could hear the emotion in Tony Bettenhausen's voice when he realized his crew had accomplished it and put Johansson back into his grid position that was so hard fought for.
The final corner of the pace lap. The PPG pace car already making its turn off the course. The field under the control of the pole sitter, Emerson Fittipaldi, his teammate alongside. Nigel Mansell and Danny Sullivan closing up just behind there is the green flag at the start-finish line, and here we go. Through the first set of turns. A complete turn back now. Taking a look back from Nigel's car as Goodyear and Sullivan and Lyondike in the fight. Sullivan and Lyondike side by side there. Mario Andretti comes in behind.
Great start by Sullivan, but a tremendous start by Paul Tracy. He got just a half a car length on Emerson, and he began to move down. Emerson backed off, and Tracy had the line. There's Johansson.
Johansson in the field right behind Mario Andretti. The car running fine to this point. We'll definitely keep an eye on that for you. At the front of the field, it is Paul Tracy, then his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. We look at the rest of the field as they come up the hill through turn 5. They come now all the way to the top of the hill. And Paul Tracy makes his first pass down through the corkscrew.
There's no doubt Tracy was disappointed after qualifying. He was in P1, position 1, until Emerson on the very last pass of the checkered flag grabbed away that pole position from the young star in Penske's stable.
Coming around to the completion of the first of 84 laps, 186 miles. Paul Tracy, there is Fittipaldi, and look at the contrails with the heavy humidity come off of the rear wing surface of his car as he turns down into the corner.
Testing is so vital. Emerson was the one that came here. Oh, look at Tracy gets the wheels off on the outside. That's the dust and the sand that we spoke about earlier. But Johansson claws his way past Mario.
Exactly what you suggested at the starting, Derek, is when they kick off the course like that, it sprays everybody behind him. Was it a factor, though, in Johansson getting past Mario?
No, it wasn't. Johansson already made the pass, under braking down into turn 2. Turn 1 is the little kink at the top of the pit straight, and that very tight left-hander is what we call turn 2.
Paul Tracy leads here despite the wheel going off the course. The first time he has ever led in an Indy car at Laguna Seca. The rest of the field as they came across the line. Paul Tracy, Fittipaldi, then Mansell, then Danny Sullivan, then Ari Lyondike. Now it is Johansson, then Mario Andretti. There goes Gugelmin. Here comes Rahal down the hill. This is a 4-time winner at this course. One who knows it absolutely to perfection. And can he move up through the field? Everyone expects so.
Rahal has had so much success here at Laguna Seca. He knows how to win on this racetrack. His quote after qualifying, look at Gugelmin, climbs that Hollywood car over the curbs. But Rahal was on the wrong side of 1/10 of a second. 1/10 faster would have jumped him 5 positions on the grid. The first 10 were all in the same second.
Moving up in the order now to 3rd place, Nigel Mansell. Ahead of him, Emerson Fittipaldi. You just barely get a glimpse of him as both Fittipaldi and Tracy now begin to inch away from 3rd place, Mansell. Paul Tracy jumped on the green, made his move early, got past the pole sitter Fittipaldi, and leads here in the Makita 300 at Laguna Seca. And riding with Danny Sullivan as he climbs up the hill, currently occupying 4th position, makes his turn in, but take a look right behind him. There is Ari Lyondike. Again, one of the people whose job this weekend may be in fact showing off, because right now he does not have a full-time ride next season.
And the cars are getting faster. The track surface is damp. I won't say it's wet, but not 45 minutes ago. The fog was so heavy and thick down on the racetrack. It actually felt as if it was raining a very light mist. So that actually has dampened or moistened the track surface. The more the cars run, they dry it very, very quickly. Fastest lap of the race so far is Paul Tracy, 72.9. That is 2 seconds slower than he qualified.
So Danny Sullivan and Lyondike continue at it around the course. This is the key battle at the moment. Front of the field, Paul Tracy running without opposition, a full 3 seconds already ahead of his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi.
Lyondike has been very, very fast all weekend here as he still chases Sullivan. Lyondike on the unemployment list as of Sunday evening because he does not have anything firmed up, even though Chip Ganassi would like to retain his services for next year. But Lyondike going out on a very strong note. Look at this.
Lyondike took a look to the inside. Conventional line running into that corner. There was no room there, so Lyondike stays back for the moment.
Struggled so much with this target Scotch Lola until Morris Nunn came up with rear geometry design changes that they put on for Mid-Ohio, and suddenly Lyondike was vaulted right up into that leading group. So Mo Nunn now working with Julian Robertson, who earlier this year worked with Raoul Boesel. So both of those engineers now working on Lyondike's car to very, very good effect.
They climb to the top of the hill. You got a glimpse there of Johansson currently running in 6th place just behind him. So this is a very tight situation on the course. Sullivan, then Lyondike, then Johansson, and then Mario Andretti, who's still in this fight as well. Let's go pit side again. Gary Gerald.
Well, here's Reggie Jackson, the Hall of Fame baseball player, who spent a lot of time in the Bay Area watching an IndyCar race today. You're in Nigel Mansell's pit. I guess Hall of Famers know just kind of where to migrate to. You're following another champion today.
Well, you know, I met him down in Phoenix earlier in the year, and he was such a fine gentleman, I kind of became a fan of his, really. I've known the Penske team and those guys for a long time, always great people, but this guy has really been a very kind guy. I rooted for him all year, and I just wanted to come by and say hello. I live close by, so I got no excuse not for coming.
Well, a lot of champions here. Reggie, nice to see you at Laguna. Wish you continued success in all your many endeavors.
Thanks, Gary. I'm glad you guys are here.
All right, Paul.
Good to see Reggie Jackson here. I know he's an avid car collector, and he's replenishing his collection at the moment because, remember the terrible fire at Oakland? Yep. Reggie's house was one of those that was involved, and lots of his collector cars were burned.
So he's refurbishing them now, building them all back up?
No, replacing. Because some of them were damaged way, way too much. But an avid car collector, Reggie Jackson.
Johansson moving down the hill, down through the corkscrew now in his pursuit of Arie Luyendyk, and Sullivan just ahead of him. And of course Luyendyk for the past several laps has been doing everything he can to try and catch Danny Sullivan. Jan Beekes?
Well, we had a chance to talk to Danny Sullivan just before the start of the race, as you did also, Paul, and he said, you know, we have finally hit the balance on a road circuit just right. He says, everybody's talking about the fact that I've won here a couple of times, that it's all me, that I love racing at this racetrack. He says, you know, that helps a little bit, but he says all the crew all on the Gallus team is really the people that made this possible. He says we finally hit that balance right on.
2 wins this season out of the Gallus organization, one with Danny Sullivan at Detroit and one with Al Unser Jr. at Vancouver.
And Danny told me this car is so sensitive that if you do unload it out of your transport, and it is fast, you daren't make big changes to the chassis. You just make tiny, small changes, because if you make big ones, you stand such a chance of totally losing your setup, and sometimes you never actually find it and get it back again.
You can see Al Unser Jr. as he comes down the hill running in 11th place. You see kind of a gap that exists between the Luyendyk-Johansson-Sullivan confrontation and then this whole group that is running totally together. Now, Al Unser Jr. has all but admitted that next year he will be driving for Roger Penske, and in doing so follows in the footsteps of his uncle Bobby and, of course, his father, a 4-time Indy 500 champion, Al Unser. That will be a very interesting marriage. The Unsers have done very well with Penske in control.
And although it's not official yet, it probably is one of this year's worst kept secrets that Al Unser Jr. will move to that Penske. Look at the smoke out of the back of Gugelman's car when he gets on the brakes at the end of that straight into turn 2. Gugelman will keep a close eye on that, but that's not a good sign when you see that smoke when he comes off the throttle. This is 2 cars behind now, Goodyear, Rahal, and Gugelmin.
So they are on the flat, the lowest section of the course. A right-hander here. They set up over to the left, swing back to the right, and then they begin the climb up the hill as Goodyear closes on Rahal. Rahal closes on Gugelmin.
Well, you see, Goodyear hit the curb on the inside. You see it drag the steering wheel out of his hand, knocked his head around a little bit. But how different it will be next year to watch Scott Goodyear in the red, white, and blue of Budweiser as opposed to the very familiar blue and silver of Mackenzie.
And there are 9 cars running right together in single file as they come down that hill and drive through the dip, following Gugelmin, who runs in 8th place, all the way back to 16th place Scott Brayton. They are lined up almost nose to tail. Very unusual for a road course for the IndyCar.
Slowest corner on the racetrack. 3rd gear, 45 miles an hour. and then the blast of acceleration up to just under 170 miles an hour before they jump on the brakes here for turn 2. Jan Beekes has a report on what's wrong with Gugelmin's car.
When you saw that smoke come out from underneath the car, it turns out that they're running the wood called Jabrock underneath the car. A lot of people are running aluminum, but they're running the wood. So what happened, Derek? The car's very heavy. He got on the brakes, the car dragged, and that was actually burning wood that you saw on that smoke.
The interesting thing about Jabrock, that burning wood, when you run at a super speedway like Indy, the driver can actually smell the wood burning as he runs along the ground.
Yeah, but that's exciting, the first time you take a whiff of that and get on the radio and say, whoa, wait a minute. Sounds like you're cooking mesquite here in my cockpit. At the front of the field, Paul Tracy, Emerson Fittipaldi is second, 3 seconds back. That position has essentially remained unchanged in terms of position and relationship. Mansell continues to occupy third, and then Danny Sullivan in the rest fight. On board the Delco chopper today, Pilotine Rick Schuster, cameraman Steve Koster, both up from Los Angeles. They're going to give us some great shots, especially as they come climbing up this hill today from the Delco chopper. Look at the camera hanging out one side there, and they can control that totally by remote control inside the chopper. And they got the doors off today. I don't think so, Derek. I'm happy to be down here. Here's the shot as they climb the hill along with the helicopter.
All the way to the top. And right here, it's 3 stories of a drop. Right there to the next turn, which is a left-hander. This can be flat in qualifying. You listen to Goodyear, it's not flat. Down the bottom of the hill, 5th gear corner. Gugelmin hanging on well ahead of Ray Hall and Scott Goodyear here.
Gugelmin currently running in 8th place. Ray Hall 9th, Goodyear 10th. A little space back to Alonso Jr. and Teo Fabi. They continue this lineup and continue to be very close competition. And running well ahead of the record. The track record here, 103.6 miles an hour. They're averaging, that is, Paul Tracy is averaging 108.7 miles an hour. Jan Beekes?
When you're talking about Scott Goodyear and you're watching him on the in-car camera, he had an incident where he went off course and bent the suspension on Friday. Then what happened was that was the latest updated suspension that Lola is using. They had to fabricate parts from Speedway configuration. In other words, they have all new suspension arms that change the roll center, change the caster, and also change the actual caster, and all kinds of stuff there, Paul. But anyway, they had to completely rebuild that car because no of those update parts are available.
He sweeps down the hill again. The good news, as he climbed the hill and the camera was pointed skyward, is you saw some blue skies and the fog drifting away.
He may not like me telling you this, but that off-course excursion, it was on the very first lap, and he was actually in the pit lane. He came in so fast, lost control on cold tires, and came to Derek Walker very embarrassed.
As long as you brought up Derek Warwick, he coming over to IndyCars?
You realize now when I say Derek Warwick, I'm doing my Bob Varsha impression.
I wondered what you were doing. What do you think?
Warwick was here very much in evidence at Elkhart and Nazareth. He's not here this weekend. I don't know what seats are available for Warwick to fill here because, I mean, unless there's something else that we don't know about or haven't been kept up to date on, I don't see a seat for Warwick.
Fight continues. You saw the interval. We move back. There is that group coming through. Al Unser Jr. chased now by Teo Fabi. That's an ongoing battle for 11th place. Ray Hall climbs the hill. Goodyear right behind him. Boy, there you see how tall it is as they make the turn down all the way through the corkscrew down to the bottom. Robbie Gordon, Raul Boisel.
Gordon blew an engine after 2 laps in this morning's warm-up, was very unhappy, so had no real quality time on full tanks. Another man who had a very big crash here on Friday, destroyed A.J. Foyt's primary car, and the car he's in now is actually the 92 Lola.
And Danny Sullivan now starting to worry. 3rd place, Nigel Mansell. Let's just stay on board, watch and listen. 2 masters of the craft here.
This is the start of the uphill run. Here's the big climb to the top of the hill. coaster ride. Still going down. This is 5th gear. Hang on. Slow it all down to the hairpin. 3rd gear, 45 miles an hour. Turn 2. Squeezing every horsepower out of that Chevrolet engine trying to catch Mansell. Oh, he corrects it there. You see, the cars always try and get away from the driver. Sometimes it is a fight.
Now really beginning to make the climb up the hill again. What we're going to do is we'll move up to Nigel Mansell just as he gets up to the top of the hill. There he is now, just about at the top with Sullivan following him.
What's that you hear rubbing the ground on Mansell's car? Is that a rubbing strip? I think it is. I think they run that car so low to the ground, the rubbing blocks.
There it is again.
You can hear it. Look at Sullivan under braking. Look at this. All the way up under Mansell's rear wing.
So they continue to contest for 3rd position. Mansell, Sullivan, and Lyondike is just behind Sullivan as well. While Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi continue to pull away. But look at Danny. He is right on top of Nigel now.
Sullivan looks quicker. He looks faster at the moment. Look at him fight the wheel again. Turns right. Little correction back on the power. This is difficult here. It's 5th gear. Great run by Sullivan here.
So now with 16 laps complete in the 84 lap scheduled distance, it is still Paul Tracy out in front, chased by his teammates. They continue to fight for 3rd place, and look how they've stretched away from the rest of the field. And here comes Rahal making his move on Gugelmin. Rahal past Gugelmin. Al Unser Jr. closing in. Scott Goodyear making his move as well. Gugelmin could be in trouble.
He could be in trouble, but that's the classic out-braking maneuver down to the hairpin when Rahal slides inside Gugelmin and then puts him offline, and Goodyear takes full advantage.
Let's go to Gary Gerald.
In the Gugelmin pit, we just checked with Tony Mandongan here on the pit wall. No, not a word in the radio from Mauricio, so they don't know of any particular problems. We were also in the Rahal camp a few moments ago. Rahal a little frustrated because he's been having his difficulties getting around in the traffic.
So now we go on board with Al Unser Jr. He runs in 11th place. He's been in the middle of the fight. We'll stay with him for a while.
Remember, Al Jr. saw his weak point. It was down at the hairpin. Still see that smoke, not close enough. 45 miles an hour, 3rd gear. Here's the blast. Chevrolet versus Ford here. Look at this, right behind him, right under his rear wing.
Little Al now has his chance. 2 right-handers lie ahead. Probably his next big move can come at the top of the hill. We'll see what he does. There's that second right-hander. Back around to the left now. He begins the climb. Teo Fabi is right there too.
10th, 11th, and 12th, but there are fights all the way down through this field.
Sweeping left-hander up toward the top. Corkscrew is next. Al Unser Jr. is not in attack posture here. Will he be at the bottom when they come back down to that right-hander? That's where he made the move earlier. The fog drifted across as we look from the Delco helicopter. And no.
positions remain the same. They remain static. Now he can get him under braking here if he really jumps on him. He wasn't close enough.
In fact, he needs to be closer before he gets into that braking zone. Back on board. The engine screams on the brakes. Hear that almost an over rev as he down changes. Oh, hear the wheel spin. Wheel spin from that car. You got to be careful. Oh, look at this. He loses his line, has to back off, make a correction, and Gugelmin, boom, suddenly pulls 2 car lengths.
Is the fact that he can close in 2, is that a product of different gearing, the different way that Little Al approaches that corner? What's happening there?
His car may be just a little bit more stable under braking than Gugelmin, but that's where it is a little bit more stable. You can see through the corners he actually had some trouble.
Gugelmin, you can see him actually bottling as he heads down into turn 2. So perhaps that is just exactly what's causing his problem and allowing Al Unser Jr. to close in. Look at Ari Luyendyk as he's lined up behind Sullivan. Johansson is there as well, but Mansell is just in front of this battle. And look at Luyendyk. He tries a whole different line down the inside, and it works. Luyendyk moves into 4th.
After 21 laps of following Danny Sullivan, look at Sullivan has a little poke down the inside. Luyendyk finally finds, or actually makes, enough room as he went through that little kink at turn 1 down the inside. He got a great run off the hairpin.
That was a matter of him forcing his nose into position and making room for himself. Now Sullivan is in a battle as well. You saw just a glimpse of the nose of Johansson's car come up on the right. Now he moves to the left.
Oh, Johansson stuck his nose down the outside under braking, which is virtually impossible. But all he was doing was telling Sullivan, I'm right here, and I'm going to turn the pressure up.
So Sullivan needs to look out when they get to the bottom of the hill and to the left-hander turning onto the pit straight. Jan Beekes, a report on Mansell?
Yes, that's right, Paul. He is dropping back a little bit and has radioed in that he's experiencing some understeer. The crew says just hang in there during the pit stops. We can make a tire pressure change and get that car back the way you want it. At the moment, that's why he's dropping back.
We're on lap 22. Jan Beekes, where are we going to see those first pit stops?
Well, we know for Mansell in particular, that'll be 8 laps from now. On lap 30 is when we'll see him here. So if he can hold that position for 8 laps, the crew is confident with a front tire pressure change, they can get that car back to neutral.
So now Danny Sullivan under heavy challenge by Stefan Johansson.
We get an opportunity to look back and a replay of that pass of Luyendyk past Danny Sullivan. 21 laps he hung on. But here it is here. Sullivan, or Luyendyk got a great run. Now he squeezes down the inside. In fact, he's in on the pit lane. Gets inside Sullivan. That's it. It's all over. He has the position. Within 2 laps, he has drawn away almost 2.5 seconds from Danny Sullivan.
Almost puts you in mind of Nigel Mansell, the way he approaches that corner too, like totally offline. You run down into the corner. You don't really care what the approach is. You just kind of gather it up before the apex.
Mansell's lines are definitely different than a lot of other drivers. Jan mentioned understeer earlier. Understeer, of course, is the common international term. Push is the American term. Literally means you arrive at the corner, turn the steering wheel, and the car just wants to plow or push straight on. It can slow down, slow the racing car down quite a bit.
Ari Luyendyk now sits in 4th place, chasing Nigel Mansell. Ari is in a good position. He has never finished better than 6th on this course. Yesterday, the kids from the drug awareness group DARE spending some time in the paddock with none other than Nigel Mansell, who took time out from a very busy weekend celebrating his championship to spend time with the kids. They appreciate it, and of course, it does a great deal of good. Willie T. Ribbs just took a quick spin off the course, and then when he did so, he buried the back wheels. And so now they call for a tow vehicle to come get Willie out of there. He spun the back wheels. They're dug into the sand here, and they're going to need the IndyCar safety team to pull him out.
And this is the inside of turn 5. This is turn 4 here, one of the fastest corners on the racetrack. Willie T. lost it exiting turn 5, spun to the inside rather than hit anything on the outside.
It's interesting. You get this far on in the season, and the drivers are so comfortable
with the presence of the IndyCar safety team, who are the same people weekend after weekend. Look how close as that vehicle moved around the track. They just drift in and out of them, make them part of the corner, and go right on.
This is a great battle here, Paul, because Mansell is losing a little bit of grip, and Lyondike knows that. He spent 2 laps getting right up behind him. Now the chase really starts. You saw the safety truck off on the left-hand side there. Mansell this weekend has a new front wing on that car. They tried it at Nazareth. It was very successful, and they have found it to be beneficial and better here also.
They were very careful about it at Nazareth, though. They're very sensitive to anybody else figuring out exactly what they're doing with the front wing. And, of course, that was their special wing, you may remember, at Nazareth. But they were absolutely believing that they have to make sure that that wing is on the car that they were going to end up in the race with while they were switching back and forth. At the front of the field, it is Paul Tracy. But now Emerson Fittipaldi is closed in to within a second of Tracy. Paul is due for his first stop at any time now. We are on lap number 26 of the 84-lap run. 186 miles, 300 kilometers. Paul Tracy has led from the green flag. In their confrontation, Tracy and Fittipaldi have pulled a full 21 seconds ahead of the third-place car of Nigel Mansell. A good view of him coming up the hill.
And the cushion over Emerson that Tracy enjoyed, that he built up in the first 7 to 10 laps, has now been eroded away. And fastest man on the racetrack at the moment is Emerson Fittipaldi, just over 1/10 of a second faster than Tracy's fastest lap. Emerson's lap, 72.5.
Tracy makes the turn onto the pit road. Separate here, makes the left-hand turn up the pits itself, and Jan Bikas is there.
Paul Tracy brings it to a stop, and he is trying to break the streak, Paul, of the last 5 years of a pole sitter winning. He wants to break that streak. We're looking very closely for any chassis changes. We don't see any. They've decided that Emerson Fittipaldi is going to come in 2 laps from now. Paul Tracy has got it at 14.2 seconds.
Boy, he must be satisfied with that car. In and out, and he doesn't touch it.
He doesn't touch it, which is always a good sign, but the outlap on these cold tires often is the telltale lap. Tracy is spectacular on cold tires. He joins the fray right in front of Mansell. This is for position here. Remember, this is for position on the racetrack.
And don't forget Mid-Ohio, no love lost here. Mansell had hoped he could wrap his championship up at Mid-Ohio when he got in contact. And Lyondike is right in there. He darts around Mansell, and Lyondike picks up second place. The little confusion of the presence of Tracy, and Lyondike took advantage of it, and he's there. And now here comes Sullivan. Sullivan tries to poke his nose alongside Mansell. Mansell won't have any of this.
Sometimes your opportunity knocks as Lyondike gets that car sideways. He's now trying to pass Paul Tracy, but Mansell was clearly held up by Tracy, and Lyondike took the opportunity. Great move.
When he is driven, Lyondike can be an inspired racing driver. You saw it in his win at Nazareth several years ago. Are we seeing it here again today? As he continues his pursuit, Paul Tracy is just ahead of him, and we expect Fittipaldi in the pits at any moment, the leader of the race.
It was great from the in-car camera. We saw Lyondike shoots down the pit lane. He is in the pit lane, but you saw it from the in-car camera of Lyondike poking his wheel down inside Mansell.
Lyondike makes that turn into the pits. The Ganassi team falls on the car. Johansson comes in as well.
One of their strong points has been their pit work. This crew is exceptional.
Change of tires, but no obvious change to the aerodynamics of the car. Here's another man who is happy with the aerodynamics set up now on fresh tires on all 4 corners, and he's back out. All of them very conscious that the speed limit of the pits is 80 miles an hour. You get it to 86 miles an hour, they're going to give you a stop-and-go penalty.
Now the next pit we need to watch for is Mansell's. Lyondike is back out right behind Robbie Buell in the MyJack car, owned and operated by Dale Coyne. Moves inside him, gets on his way.
We wait, too, for Fittipaldi, who is the leader, due in at any second now. Paul Tracy came out. Of course, there is Fittipaldi in, Jan.
Fittipaldi hit it right on the marks. Boy, Paul, he came screaming in here, trying to save as much time as possible. This is another Penske car that we're expecting to see no changes. The tires are on. Man, that was quick. Just waiting for the last bit of fuel, and Emerson Fittipaldi to be on. He's off, and he's out of here. 13.7 seconds, Paul.
And you see Paul Tracy coming up the hill. Now, at this time, Fittipaldi's under the 80-mile-an-hour limit. If that limit didn't exist, you would have seen a whale of a drag race as they come out of the pits. Go to Gary.
Nigel Mansell in for his first of 2 expected stops today. Tommy Wirtz not making any changes up front. Everything looks smooth and routine. He's trying to gain that position back that he lost to Ari Luyendyk through the work of his pit crew. We'll see how it translates when he gets back on course.
Boy, look, both of them, Sullivan and Mansell. Mansell wiggling left and right as he applies the power, trying to get up to speed. You saw the celebration, the elation, too, in Danny Sullivan's crew as they got Sullivan out ahead of Mansell and continued their battle there. Luyendyk just coming down the hill now. There he is as he comes in behind Mansell, and he moves to battle for position.
And you see what happened there. How sideways can you be in the pit lane and not lose it? But that has allowed him to get ahead of Luyendyk. But here's the battle rages.
Luyendyk makes the move on Mansell, and Luyendyk is passed again. So Luyendyk moves into 4th, Mansell back to 5th. Boy, as they come off of these pit stops, we've seen some wonderful confrontation. Here was Mansell coming out of the pits.
Drops the clutch, and watch this crisscross of the steering wheel. Sideways. Sideways again.
And
Breakaway again. Look at this. 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Trying to beat Luyendyk. And he didn't quite pull it off.
The question, of course, is going to be whether or not he ticked over that 86-mile-an-hour cap on the speed limit in the pits. No doubt the officials saw the maneuver back and forth and are taking a real hard look at that situation. I think it probably was very close, but as yet, no indication.
Well, the front wheels may have been doing 80 miles an hour, but the rear wheels were definitely near 180.
Yeah, you wonder what they're going to read. Are they going to read the lateral speed or the frontal speed on the car? The Makita 300 continues from... We're looking at the potential of another runaway by Paul Tracy. After the first round of stops, he is the leader once again. His teammate, the pole sitter, Emerson Fittipaldi, sits in 2nd. Danny Sullivan, with a brilliant drive today, sits in 3rd. Ari Luyendyk 4th. Nigel Mansell is 5th. And Stefan Johansson currently runs in 6th place. Continuing on in 7th, Scott Goodyear, Bobby Rahal, Mario Andretti, and Teo Fabi.
You can see that Goodyear got the better of Rahal during those pit stops. He was behind him before he went in. Now he is ahead of him. There has been a little bit of shuffling because Al Unser Jr., who's a little bit further back, has managed to claw his way past Teo Fabi.
Looking back through the field now, here comes Mario, Al Unser Jr., and Teo coming down the hill. And little Al, of course, full load of fuel. Look at him. He bottomed going into the corner, and then with that full load, got on the brakes very hard, smoked all the tires.
And that is a scary thing to do down on that hairpin, because if you lock the brakes and you make a beeline for the inside line, you can T-bone somebody so easily. Believe it or not, sometimes the car ahead sees the smoke coming, and if he thinks it's going to be an accident, he'll actually move wide. Mario didn't that time.
Change in weight on the car from when it goes in empty to when it comes out is well over 200 pounds. And if they don't set their controls in the cockpit for handling just exactly right, that race car can be very hard to handle.
And Al Jr. is a master at making passes when the conditions are difficult. The conditions are more difficult on full fuel with cool tires not up to optimum working temperature. If he doesn't make the pass there, he knows sometimes he'll struggle mightily to make it later.
Again up the hill, the sun shines at the scenic Laguna Seca. And that dive down the hill. Thrilling ride the first couple of times, tedious after that, and a very fast left-hander at the bottom that's very difficult to drive.
Here we go again. Is he close enough? Is he close?
He's going to try it. Nope.
Oh, you need to almost be side by side. See, Mario clips the curb on the inside. You got to be side by side with Mario if you're going to make a realistic pass. Look at Rahal.
Rahal looking for that line that has worked for others today as he moves on Scott Goodyear. Rahal currently 8th, looking for 7th.
There is racing room here, but sometimes you have to force the issue. And down into turn 2, you really have to force it sometimes. Rahal wasn't prepared to do that right there.
Rahal uses all of the course and then some, continuing his pursuit of Scott Goodyear.
Uphill run. You cannot make a mistake here. You make a mistake, you lose 2, 3, or even 4 positions because it takes you that much time to grab the momentum back.
Fight broken off for the moment here. Let's go and take a look at Raul Boisel. He's been locked for the past couple of moments in a battle with Gugelmin. Gugelmin sits just in front of him. Now here we have an additional advantage. We have telemetry coming out of Raul Boisel's car.
And this is real-time telemetry. What you see is what's going on in Boisel's Ford engine as we see it. Watch the speed on the right side climb up. 168, almost 170 miles an hour, and he's only 4 or 5 laps after his pit stop. Boisel not as fast, not as competitive as he has been in weekends past. The first session here on Friday morning broke the gearbox, lost an hour and a half of precious track time, and Dave Cripps, who is his engineer working on this car, said they just cannot catch up when you lose that amount of track time. Sapped on the little bit of Gugelmin's setup, put some of that onto Boisel's car, but really, as Cripps says, you need every lap you can get when you only have 4 short sessions.
Boisel has not only his battle with Gugelmin, but he's also just about 10 seconds from going a lap down. Keep an eye on the back of Gugelmin's car as well, too. It looked as if they climbed, when they climbed the hill, that there was a bit of misting at the back of his car. Jan Vikas, you can update us on Boisel?
Actually, I can update you on the whole Dick Simon team. All 4 of their cars are all running together. To add to what Derek was talking about short sessions, they did not have the opportunity to come here and test. So they're just shooting with what they would use as their normal road course setup. Obviously, all those drivers are very close together.
Alonso Jr. makes a move on Mario Andretti. Teo Fabi closes in as well. So this fight that has been set up for several laps now becomes something very real. Mario sweeps to the outside. Teo looks for the inside. It's a battle for 10th place.
And let me tell you, that was absolutely forcing the issue. Look at Al Jr. down the inside, and Mario does not give up. Watch this. Watch the wheels almost contact each other. Mario was not willing to give that up, but Al Jr. forced his hand. Fabi almost followed Al Jr. through.
And really a spectacular piece of driving by all 3. Mario stayed right where he needed to be. Little Al stayed low on the corner. Teo put the nose in there, but continued to be part of the battle. Willie T. Ribbs, he got restarted, but now he's off the edge of the course again. So Willie T. with a continuing problem on a hard day on what it essentially is his home track. Back at the Makita 300, we're tracking Mario Andretti and Teo Fabi and their circulating battle for 10th place and the interval. Brian Till being reported out of the race now with a broken header on the car. Assisting ESPN with aerial coverage of this year's 1993 Monterey Grand Prix are the fine folks from Delco, the official battery of IndyCar racing. Look at that view down. And the tremendous crowd, once again, just a gigantic crowd here at Laguna Seca. Even despite all the fog this morning, they were here plenty early at 6 o'clock. Scott Sharp there on the outside of the fight between Lyondike and Sullivan, and Scott's staying with that battle.
Oh, I'm not sure he saw a line. Oh, who's that? Jimmy Vasser in all sorts of trouble on the way up the hill. Gets it out of control, and luckily didn't get all the way to that concrete wall.
Boy, he just gathered that car up at the last possible second. No doubt felt that he was in trouble as he started the turn into the corner, got out of everything, and was able to keep it under control.
Mark Smith now the next one on Danny Sullivan's shopping list. They are lapping these cars. Mark Smith in the 92 Penske. I think he's had a tremendous baptism into IndyCar racing. Moves aside as he should. He'll see Lyondike. He'll allow him to go by because he knows they are in a private battle. Mark Smith does. He moves to the right-hand side, lets Lyondike through.
It's my understanding that Mark Smith with Craftsman may be moving over to Derek Walker next year, and that would be a fine move for him, and also opens a wonderful opportunity with Frank Archiero's team.
Another team and driver that probably haven't got the results they deserve. Mark Smith has been in the top 10 on many, many occasions, but he has suffered more than his fair share of gearbox problems.
We take you all the way through the running order now at the completion of 38 laps. Again, the name that is most prominent, though not visible on the screen all that much, is Paul Tracy. That's because he's 11 seconds in front of the entire field with another terrific run, but Let's just go back to Phoenix and remember when he had 2 laps on the entire field and then trouble. We don't hope that on him. It seems like there's been a great deal of maturing during the year, but we'll keep an eye on it. On board, Danny Sullivan.
Oh, Fabi's out of
Fabi's in
control.
trouble. And fortunately, Gordon sees it plenty ahead, but what about the rest? Yes, they all get a good view of him and are able to get out of the throttle as he gets back on course.
Trying to get by Mario Andretti. Forced the issue. That was turn 4. The very fast right-hander, but luckily he didn't stall the car. We saw him wheel spin away from that stop position. This now is a battle for position with Fabi and Gugelmin.
Dale Fabi was 11th. Gordon got around him, then picked up the position and pulled Gugelmin into contact with Fabi.
Tail end of that pack is Paul Tracy. So Tracy very close to putting a lap onto Fabi and Gugelmin.
Well, we mentioned not so long ago that he was 10 seconds behind Gugelmin. Now look, he's right there. We get forward telemetry out of this car as well. RPMs on the top, throttle position on the bottom, and of course the miles per hour as the speed climbs coming up the hill. Over the top, downhill now.
175 we saw. So you can see as this low drops, he's actually running almost 5 miles an hour quicker than Bozell was at that particular time. Mind you, that was only a 1-lap sample we took from Bozell. See the throttle? You can see him playing with the throttle. Now it's full. Changes gear. Off completely for the right-hander. That's where Fabi crashed. That's where Fabi spun. And gets back on the power again. But now Tracy about to pick his way through the back markers. Next one on his list is Bozell.
And this is where Tracy must be so very careful as he works his way through the field. It's been a dangerous positioning for him in the past. Jan Beekes, you have an update?
Yes, checking in with the 2 cars, Paul, that have gone off course. First, we checked with Jimmy Vassar's crew. We talked to Jim Hayhoe, the team owner. He says he called in. He said, I went off big time, but the car's okay. Same thing with Teo Fabi. Talked to Jim Hall. He said, he radioed in and said, yeah, I went off big time, but the car's okay. Both drivers saying not car problems, just getting too aggressive.
Well, if the cars are all right, the question that has to remain is how much debris, how much sand, grit, and gravel got up on there. There's Tracy making his move on Bozell. So that course could be getting slicker and slicker in that corner.
And where is Emerson? There he is. You can see it now. It's 7 seconds on the last lap. Emerson is losing ground to Tracy. Emerson still holds fastest lap of the race, but Tracy is running just a little bit faster as Emerson makes his way through some clouded, some tire smoke.
The traffic is costing Paul Tracy, though, as we've just rolled over the halfway point of the race. And right now it seems that Fittipaldi is able to close very efficiently on Tracy in this last lap. He trimmed 2 seconds.
See, the crew is scouring all over the car trying to find what that might be. They're actually not looking in that area, though. They're looking up more towards the dry pulleys up on the front of the engine. As soon as we get a report, we'll make sure to let you know what the problem is with Sullivan, but a major setback for the 3rd place runner.
Very costly to Danny Sullivan. Ari Landijk comes up and takes 3rd place, followed by Mansell and by Johansson. Piece of debris off the last corner. What that?
Looked like a rear wing from Robbie Buell's MyJack car. I mean, it's so...
Yep.
Oh, no, it wasn't Buell. Scott Sharp has left part of Tony Bettenhausen's team on the outside of the corner, the last corner, which is turn 11. Gary Gerald has an update.
Yeah, Derek, the wing, I believe, came off Scott Sharp's car. We're down here in the Penske pit. We looked up to see a car sideways, and suddenly the wing was flying in the air. It's now against the tire barrier, and as you can see, it's probably just off the groove. I don't know that they'll have to go to local yellow to retrieve it or not.
Well, let's take a look at the car if we can again, because did it just fly off in position there? Exactly what happened. Look at Mansell right behind him. Johansson comes screaming past on the inside, as does Goodyear.
And look how costly that was for Mansell, because now suddenly having to avoid that rear wing, he loses 2 positions to Johansson and Scott Goodyear.
It'll be a frightening moment for Scott Sharp as all that downforce needed in the corner suddenly goes away. Fortunately, it was a low-speed corner. The wing wasn't working that much.
It was hard to see whether he actually had contact with somebody. See, you can hear Mansell grab those gears all the way down through the gearbox to 3rd gear. third gear might sound a bit high, but remember they use 6-speed gearboxes here. So third gear, in fact, is like a first or a second gear of years past. And of course, these engines pull so well from down low in the rev range, you actually can use a higher gear than you could use, say, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Mansell 6 has ground to make up now, but very soon the challenge will come from Bobby Rahal, a 4-time winner on this course, who closes in now just behind Mansell. Here's the view from his car as they went into the last corner. Watch the wing.
Now what happened here? He turns in. Oh, I see what happened.
Oh, it didn't come off accidentally.
That's what it was. Mansell did a rodeo ride up over the top of Scott Sharp's car. Wasn't able to make the pass. Wheels contacted. I wonder, is Mansell's right front suspension now broken? Here it is again. It's under braking for turn 11, the slowest corner on the racetrack. Makes a commitment down the inside. Doesn't get close enough. Scott Sharp turns in, doesn't see Mansell. Up over the top, knocks the rear wing off, loses a couple of positions himself, and sends Scott Sharp back to Tony Bettenhausen for hopefully a spare rear wing, and he can continue.
One incredibly lucky man, I would say, Nigel Mansell. That could have flipped the car right through the air.
Behind Mark Smith, moves aside, Mark moves to the left, Mansell goes through. I'm looking to see, is there any damage on Mansell's car on that right front wing? I don't see anything, so it looks like it was literally just a suspension wheel-to-wheel contact, and we presume nothing is bent.
Take a look at this onboard camera. We can study the suspension parts. They all look straight. Now, despite that contact, it looks like he's gotten away with it. I'll tell you how tough the Lola is.
That's right. Tell you how difficult it is to win. The world champion in the Lola struggling to keep pace with these Penske's. And it's amazing how good he's been all through the year on the oval tracks where everybody else thought he might struggle.
At the front of the field, it's still Tracy and Fittipaldi not in contest, separated by 6 seconds. So we take a look at Robbie Gordon, now being worried by Teo Fabi. Gordon currently in 9th place. And Teo lining up with him. Who's that tucked in behind? The leader of the race, Paul Tracy, all alone. His nearest competitor, his own teammate, 5 seconds back.
He has fallen foul of passing traffic in the past. It is very painful, I'm sure, for him to watch what happened in Mid-Ohio when he had yet another win and he threw it all away. Jan Beekes is with Danny Sullivan.
Danny, your 1993 season ended earlier than you hoped. What put you out?
Well, it turned out to be an exhaust header, broken half, and as you know, that just everything goes away. But it was good till then. Crew did a tremendous job to take me from 5th to 3rd, and the car was running, you know, no problem. And you know how it goes. It just goes like that. Just one moment it's there, and the next minute it's off song and no power.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Paul Tracy looking for room. Danny Sullivan's first DNF in 10 races here at Laguna.
When Danny says it all goes away when the exhaust header breaks, of course what he means is the turbocharger loses all its boost because it's no longer pressurized, and actually you can set fire to the bodywork of the car if you continue to run with a broken header.
Hot exhaust gases pouring out of the opening that was not intended. That can very quickly set a machine on fire. Robbie Gordon continues to motor around the course out of contact now in his fight with Teo Fabi, and Paul Tracy continues to carve his way through the field, lapping almost everyone. Take a look there, Scott Sharp, new wing on the car. It carries number 16, the other car in the team, that of Stefan Johansson. Very quick replacement of that wing. Gary Gerald?
Well, we're very impressed with the way Tony Bettenhausen's second team went to work here. You have to worry about the bolts being stripped and how clean is the post going to be where that ring was torn off, but they made an amazingly fast change. They had to take a spare from Stefan Johansson's car, so keep in mind on the side of that wing it'll say 16, but it's still Scott Sharp in number 33. He's happy to be back out there getting some valuable experience.
Yeah, but Gary, the problem may be is it doesn't look like the wing is on particularly straight.
It is not on straight. You can clearly see there is something else bent in the mounting of that rear wing. As he goes away from us here, clearly that wing is not on. But however, if it is secure, he will still get downforce from that wing. Enough anyway.
Willie T-Ribs finally retiring from this race. No reason given for his retirement. And And they keep Scott Sharp out and on the race course. Apparently they just want him to finish now. They're not anticipating coming in and doing anything with that wing. Let's go forward in the field once again. 5th place, Scott Goodyear. Johansson should be just up course from him, then Lyondike, then Fittipaldi. Goodyear leaves this team at the end of the season.
Thought the omen was that he was going to win this race because the last 2 races finished 3rd, finished 2nd. He said he's got to finish 1st here. What a great way it would have been to end his very successful association with Derek Walker, but it may not be. Look at Rahal.
Rahal right behind Mansell. 6th and 7th place. Jan, you have a report?
Yes, speaking of Mansell, the champion right now is having difficulty with the same thing he did earlier in that they're having a push. The crew is hoping that when he comes in they can make another change. The tire pressure wasn't enough. They're going to try front wings and some more tire pressure adjustments to get the push out of Mansell's car. That's why he's dropping back.
As they came off of the last pit stops, Paul Tracy was a full 11 seconds in front of Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi's closing in. He's now 2 seconds back. If they get any closer, we'll jump on top of it. In the meantime, let's stay here. We're back to the lead of the field. There is Tracy. We look for Fittipaldi.
Tracy, I still say, has to be careful. He dropped the ball so many times this year. The very worst thing he could do as he closes in on Mario is make a mistake again. There is Emerson. He is absolutely reeling him in. Less than 3 seconds now, it looks like. Look at Mark Smith. Is he in trouble? He's moving aside, slowing down. That's everybody down the inside.
Fittipaldi has been running laps faster than the leader, Paul Tracy. That's obvious by the fact he's closing in on the last lap, though. Tracy was 0.6 faster, but Fittipaldi was handling traffic earlier and counted by Tracy.
And handling traffic is what you have to be very good at, but you can clearly see here now, Emerson is closer than he's been for many laps over Paul Tracy, but Tracy has clear road ahead of him.
2 cars in separation right now. That's Fabi, that's Andretti, but they're in their own battle. That's a fight for 9th place. So they're not going to give any ground as Fittipaldi comes up and tries to catch his teammate to battle for the lead.
During qualifying, Emerson was 7th fastest with only 4 minutes to go. Came in, made a small, minute change. He liked it and went straight out, and in the very last lap, boom, grabbed the pole away from Paul Tracy.
Still that battle between Andretti and Fabi, just behind Paul Tracy, while at the same time, now Emerson Fittipaldi tries to hunt down his own teammate as the Penske team battles within itself for the last race of the season. It's being provided by Delco, the official battery of IndyCar racing. The Makita 300. We are now 54 laps deep. There's the chopper with the camera hanging off one side, keeping track especially of the top of the hill. We're keeping track of Tracy and Fittipaldi. They were so close together just a few moments ago, but now with traffic and the battle between Fabi and Mario in between them, Fittipaldi has been forced to drop back just a bit. We're still threatened with a cloud bank not far away from the racetrack, but at the moment, beautiful blue skies over Laguna Seca and clear air. Now, we're looking ahead to some pit stops upcoming. Jan Beekes, what can we expect?
Paul, we can expect to see Emerson Fittipaldi first this time instead of Paul Tracy for the Penske team. They have already rolled out the tires. They say that it is a tire situation, not a fuel one. In other words, Emerson felt that his tires went off on that first sequence. He wants fresher tires sooner. He thinks that's going to give an advantage. Lap 56, next time for Emerson. The very next lap will be Tracy.
You talk about tires, Jan. Nigel Bennett said the biggest problem with designing an IndyCar, he believes the tires are too small for the weight and the horsepower these cars put out. They are under-tired, and it becomes a designer's nightmare sometimes trying to design a car that's faster, knowing that you have to make these tires live. Emerson now is in, and Jan is there.
He gets sideways coming in, but he does hit it. He is taking everything he can to cut down the time here in the pits. He pulls off a tearaway. They're changing all 4 tires as normal. We do not see any chassis changes. They're getting ready for the last few drops of fuel, and Emerson Fittipaldi will make his final pit stop in 1993. He's underway in 14.9 seconds, Paul.
Spectacular work by the Penske organization. Paul Tracy due in next there. You can see by the crew members all up and down the pit road that many are expecting to stop very soon by the rest of their cars. But some tactic being played here. Fittipaldi, as soon as he's feeling his car going off on tires, heads into the pits. There's Paul Tracy coming up the hill now. Next lap should be his stop.
And the pit stops have changed the face of these races so often. Emerson knows he probably cannot catch him on the racetrack. He has had a super pit stop. Tracy is hoping for something similar.
Of course, in the points fight with Paul Tracy dominating in this run, picking up the extra points already for leading most of the laps, has a pretty firm grip on third place in the points. Scott Brayton gets in trouble, gets off, gets back on. Whoa!
Now that was a scary moment because he left so much dust behind him. Olivia Griard did not see Scott Brayton ahead of him and had to take serious avoiding action on the way up that hill.
In that points fight, Tracy now has third place. Rahal has managed to move into fourth place, and Bosell is fifth in the points. Emerson Fittipaldi, as he made his turn into the pits. Take a look at that for tweaking the back end around.
Oh, that's almost parallel parking time there. It leaves black streaks from the rear wheels as he slides her in. And here's Scott Brayton's spin. Same place as Willie T. Ribbs went off earlier. That is turn 5. But this is when it gets scary. Now, Olivia Griard behind him is unsighted. Bang! Turns to the left and just misses Scott Brayton.
Very little distance, but great reaction time by Griard. So 57 laps are now complete. 84 laps the scheduled distance.
Now look what's happening here, Paul. Tracy ran 2 laps on a light fuel load, hoping that will keep that advantage he enjoyed over Emerson.
Jan Beekes.
Well, Derek, yes, you're right. He ran on a lighter fuel load, but like we said, it comes down more to tires here than it does to weight. Emerson thought he wanted the softer tires sooner. Obviously, Tracy and Roger Penske at the controls decided this was the lap to do it. Paul Tracy underway, very quick stop, 14, just a little over 14 seconds, Paul.
Tracy, under the speed limit, comes out of the pits, clear course. No one in contest as he comes up the hill and joins the rest of the battle. Coming in behind Rahal.
The car I was watching for was Emerson. He obviously did not make up or did not gain a major advantage as Lyondike peels off down into the pit lane and Gary Gerald is there.
Watching with the crew, Arie Luyendyk has never finished at this racetrack better than 6th. He's got a great opportunity in this one today as this crew goes to work. This should be the final Arie Luyendyk pit stop for the Chip Ganassi team. He's looking for a ride next year. He wants to show his skill in this one today. Waiting for the final bit of fuel. No changes on the setup of the race car. 16.8. It wasn't that fast, Paul.
Taking every possible ounce of fuel he can. Stefan Johansson, who came into the pits in 5th place, right there too. They've got a problem though. Finally, they get the car down.
Right front tire could not just get that lug nut snugged up tight enough. Wasn't prepared to let him go. You could see the right front man said, no, wait.
Is he going to have to wonder about that right front for a while, or do you assume that it's on solid?
I don't know, but here's a battle for position right here. That's Scott Goodyear behind him. That is a battle for position. Goodyear has not made his stop yet. Scott Pruitt looks as if he's in trouble. The tow truck is beside him. Look at Goodyear down the inside.
Look at Johansson at the same time. Look at this fight as it seesaws back and forth. It is a battle for 5th place. And here comes Cheever. He's not in this fight, but he sure like to join it. He's several laps behind the run of the race.
Great move, risky move by Scott Goodyear in the Mackenzie car around the outside of Johansson. Johansson is slowed down a bit, and Cheever takes the opportunity to also make a pass on Stefan.
Cheever runs 16th. He's a lap behind the leader lap. Now with those pit stops, 1st through 9th are all running with the leader, Paul Tracy.
So Goodyear, in fact, had made his stop. That was a battle for position. And how good they can be when you have one car on cold tires and another one who had actually enjoyed a full lap after the pit stop to get the tires a bit hotter.
Here it obviously pays off for Goodyear. Certainly what the physics suggest.
So Johansson goes in 4th. and he comes out in 6th. So that precious few seconds it took to tighten up that right front wheel has cost Stefan 2 positions.
Mario Andretti making his last stop of the season. He was in 5th when he came in. The stop is costing. He's falling steadily backwards through the field.
12 consecutive seasons he's been with this team. Never in his career has he stayed with a team that long.
And 1 more season to go. And Mario has announced officially now that at the conclusion of the 1994 season, he will retire from IndyCar racing.
And he did make a statement before that he would like to spend his last season with his son, Michael. That's not going to be, because we know that Michael has moved to Ganassi Racing with the new Reynard.
Running in 3rd place at the time he turned on to the pit road is Nigel Mansell, Jan.
The PBG IndyCar champion comes in, and they are going to try to not only change the tires, but change the setup on this car. We'll look for a possible front wing change because the car is still pushing. There it goes. They're making the changes. Wow, a lot of turns on those front wings. He must have a big push. Nigel Mansell has the fuel, and he's got 14.8 seconds.
So as Mansell roars back into the fight, Paul Tracy, after his final stop of the season, really has turned the wick up. He is running a good 3 seconds faster than Emerson Fittipaldi, who runs in 2nd place.
Great fight. It really is a great fight. Mansell is trying to hold off Johansson. Look at Johansson. This is the uphill run. He's trying to get down inside it, but it's almost impossible.
And it's not just 2 cars in this fight, just behind Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal.
You can hear Mansell's car hit the ground. He's on a full fuel load, still rubbing on those rubbing blocks underneath the car. Right behind him is Little Al.
You're on board now. There's that fight just ahead. Rahal just behind Little Al.
Johansson delayed with that. Oh, down the inside. Has a little look down the inside. Look at Al Jr. Tries to line up both of them. Johansson up over the top of the curve at turn 11. Now
what a great race this is, and here is Paul Tracy joining the middle of this fight. It could possibly be costly to Tracy because no one here is going to give any quarter. Here is Al Unser Jr. Again, that slightly unconventional line into the corner around Johansson. Picks up the position. Tracy comes in behind Johansson, trying to put him a lap down. Moves to the inside, can't get it. Rahal is there too.
That pass by Al Unser Jr. is so decisive. He absolutely forces the issue, doesn't get on the brakes until he's alongside the car that he's trying to pass, and then he works it out on his way to the apex. Tremendous move by Al Jr.
Christian Danner being reported out of the race. Gearbox problems. Scott Pruitt is stopped on the course. Car would not restart. Gary Gerald.
We're down here in the Tony Bettenhausen pit, and I tell you, this poor guy who used to drive race cars is just agonizing over the fortunes. You heard about how they had to change a fuel pump early. They got out. They thought on this last pit stop that they didn't get the right front wheel securely fastened. They were worried they'd have to make a 3rd stop. But after a couple of laps, Stefan said on the radio that the car was working okay. But Bettenhausen has just literally been chewing his nails down here, watching him in traffic. And as they came out of that final turn and down the front straightaway, Paul, everybody in this crew was up, wondering were they going to be able to complete that lap.
Well, and looking here as they all compress down, Tracy sits in the middle of that. It's working to the advantage of Fittipaldi, who is closing in. He was 9 seconds back on the 59th lap. Now he's just under 5 seconds behind.
Oh, this is a tremendous battle here. There's a long line of cars here. Mansell, Al Jr., Johansson, Rahal, all battling for position in a line. And in the sandwich is Paul Tracy. That's Rahal all over the rear wing of Tracy.
And with Rahal there, just off the edge, we should very soon be picking up Fittipaldi. Take a little look to the right. Fittipaldi is now only 2 seconds behind Paul Tracy.
Here he comes.
There he is up the hill.
Oh, this is a fight. Tracy, we said it earlier, cannot take too many risky moves. He has fallen foul of that earlier, but the battle ahead of him, they cannot afford to move aside and let the leader through because they're embroiled in their own personal fight.
Thus far, 64 laps of 84, the scheduled distance complete. A particularly safe race. No major contact here. Some spins off the course, but nothing that matters. Gary Gerald.
Interesting, the Penske team sending an emissary down here to the Bettenhausen pit, I think lobbying to see whether or not they could get Johansson out of the way to clear the path for Paul Tracy. Keep an eye on that in the racetrack, Paul.
Well, at this moment, Paul Tracy moves alongside Johansson. Maybe it was a radio communication, but Fittipaldi is now just behind Johansson and very quickly should be in contact with Tracy.
And the 393 Penske's are one behind the other here. Johansson's out of sequence. He's now a lap down. But Emerson has absolutely gobbled up Paul Tracy's lead when he got into this traffic jam.
So Fittipaldi now looking to the inside. I wonder if the request was made for both Tracy and Fittipaldi. You would assume it was.
Well, the difficulty is, how can Johansson move over? He's going to lose touch with Mansell. Cheever is not in the fight. He gets himself in trouble. Rahal passes Cheever.
Allenser Jr. caught up behind Griard now as he moves inside Griard. And Tracy very hard on the brakes looking for room.
That's where you get in trouble. That's where Tracy could so easily get in trouble by trying to slice past Griard. He backed off and let Griard sort himself out, but Emerson is right there.
Tracy dropped a wheel off, got off the right side of the course. Emerson closed in. Now Emerson is right behind Tracy. They both try to duck under Johansson as Rahal closes in to join this fight as well. But the battle is now for the lead as Fittipaldi challenges his teammate.
Great fight here. Rahal, remember, is trying to catch Johansson. Johansson does not let Tracy through, and Emerson is right behind him. Great fight.
Boy, you wanted to see a car race. We have one here today at Laguna Seca. Round 16 of the PPG IndyCar World Series. The last race of the year. We suggested it might be a time for everybody to show off. But look at Fittipaldi and Tracy. They've got jobs for next year, and they're still showing off.
Johansson, they're trying to lap him. Tracy has to watch what goes on ahead as well as what goes on behind. There are no team orders, no championship to be decided here. It's just bragging rights on the final race of the season.
With the speed of Tracy and the absence of full course yellows, we're running at 106 miles an hour average race speed. That's 3 miles an hour faster than Michael Andretti's race record. Jan?
Well, you say there's no team orders in the Penske camp, but what there is that Roger Penske is, of course, telling Paul Tracy, take it easy, watch yourself in traffic because of the problems he's had before. That's given Emerson the chance to close right in.
Now, Johansson has lost touch with Alonso Jr. He probably will move over soon because the heat is certainly being turned up here. Here we go.
Here comes Tracy moving down to the inside. He cycles past Johansson, so for the moment, Tracy and Fittipaldi are separate. Moments now, and a tremendous battle redeveloping for the lead. Paul Tracy powerful throughout most of the race, pulling away from the field. But in the last few laps, Fittipaldi, his very own teammate, has been driving like a man possessed and is now sitting right on the rear wing of Paul Tracy.
Tracy holds off one of the most experienced men in all of motor racing. If Paul Tracy could ever achieve the accolades that Emerson had, he would have a tremendous season. But I'll tell you what, Emerson is going to have his work cut out for him to pass Tracy. Catching him is one thing, actually making or expecting it to be easy, Emerson knows he will not be. Jan Beekes.
Unbelievably, we just had a report that Paul Tracy's going to have to come in the pits because his seat belts have become undone. Paul Tracy, our leader, I've never heard of that. Derek, he'll be here any second.
Happened several years ago at Scott Pruitt in Detroit, where he kept having his seat belts unbuttoned and had to come in to get them reattached. Talk about a man who, when he has bad luck, if he doesn't have it for himself, something else gets into the mix.
You might ask why? Why stop? Well, remember, he gets beaten around and thrown around that cockpit when he goes left, right, accelerates and brakes. But the most dangerous part of not having your seatbelts undone, if you have an accident, it is an incredibly dangerous situation to be in.
So you're suggesting in part it's a judgment call on his part?
In part, I would suggest it will be a judgment call.
Well, then how, if they're even attached at all, would he even consider coming into the pits?
The only thing about it is he has a clutch rest down for his left foot that he can brace himself in the cockpit with. If he can get away with that, he may struggle on. But the thoughts of an incident and having no seatbelts surely must be on his mind.
And of course, it means that he can't drive at 100%. He's driving a little off of his pace now. Fittipaldi, if he doesn't know it, can surely sense it. Jan Beekes?
Well, you two hit it right on the nose, and that is that the decision will be Paul Tracy's. They say, live with it if you can, but if you can't make it, we'll hook it back up. It's in his hands right now. Remember, he drove with that broken ankle and won the race at Road America. He's a tough man in the cockpit.
Key passing area, but Fittipaldi does not make the attempt. Still, he closes in. How does it happen?
Well, very simply, there's a center buckle right on his belly button, and sometimes when the steering movements, if you cross your arms, your elbow can very easily hit that buckle that holds the seat belts together, and if it flicks it the wrong way, suddenly it opens all 6 points of that safety harness.
Well, you know, you want a quick release buckle, but is there not a better design than that? Well, it's a seldom occurrence, admittedly.
Right, and when you get to the corkscrew, or when you get in trouble, suddenly your elbows and your arms flay around a lot more than you're used to sometimes. And that can easily undo it. I've had it happen before.
14 laps to go for the 1993 PPG IndyCar World Series. If those belts are very loose, it doesn't seem that Paul Tracy is beginning to show it. He's actually been inspired by the presence of Fittipaldi just behind him and has been pulling away.
I mentioned 6-point harnesses. There are 2 around his waist, 2 around his legs, and 2 over his shoulders. But the one buckle holds everything together. When you release it, everything suddenly releases.
So for the moment, this fight for the lead is broken off. There are no other fights in the field. It remains static. Car off in the turn 2 as it slides off the edge of the course. We can't see who that is. We'll check it, and we'll report it to you when we come back. He comes out, well, he's going to turn the right side away from us at this point, but he got into some fairly heavy contact. It spun him off. Yellow flags flew in turn 2, and Mansell has just been simply motoring ever since then. It looks like he's pit bound.
So that's 2 accidents. You can clearly see over the Haviland sign there that there has been heavy contact with Mark Smith. I don't know why Mansell's going so slowly. Obviously, he thinks there's something else broken in the car, so he's had 2 incidents today. Here it is, down the inside. Whoa, what an argument over a piece of property. I don't know whether he had any chance of making that, because Mark Smith was already turning into the corner when the contact appeared. You see both cars do spin. Gary Gerald is there.
Nigel comes in and immediately shuts off the engine, unbuttons the steering wheel. That's the indication that his day may well be over. Now, we had it word that he may have injured or hurt his wrist in that contact when the wheel turned. We don't know if that, in fact, is the case. But Nigel, the 1903 IndyCar champion, is climbing out, Derek. There will not be a season-ending victory for the Newman Haas team.
Well, he certainly is favoring his right hand, and you saw in the onboard camera how fast that wheel spun around when the wheels got into the side of Mark Smith's.
Nigel has carried that injury for quite a long time. Look at the steering wheel. Watch that. Right hand, watch the impact. Look at that. Yanks the steering wheel to the right. That's what would re-injure that already injured wrist, but I can't see how he was ever going to make it past Mark Smith on the line he was trying to get by him on.
Well, he's been using a different line of that corner where he almost makes a turn way early and takes a straight run to the apex and gathers it all up down at the bottom. But in this particular case, Mark Smith was at the bottom when he got there.
So the season is over for Mansell. What a spectacle it was to watch him, particularly on ovals. But unfortunately, after 2 incidents, today is over. However, there's a big check ready for him tomorrow night at the banquet.
He has added so much to this year and makes history, winning his first IndyCar race. From the pole to the checkered flag at Australia, motors his way all the way to an IndyCar championship, and for 1 week holds both titles at the top of the world, the IndyCar champion and the Formula One champion. That hat that he wears is commemorative of that victory at Nazareth that gave him the championship.
Believe it or not, that wrist injury did not come in a racing incident. He fell down on his way into a press conference earlier this year at Cleveland, and that was where that injury occurred, and now it's been aggravated again with that incident with Mark Smith.
Gary Gerald, you have more.
we're alongside Nigel. The IndyCar medical folks are here, and they're going to tend to him. There won't be any confirmation from Nigel as to specifics relating to the problem until they have an opportunity to check it out further. You mentioned, Derek, that unusual incident that happened in Cleveland that resulted in the injury. Nigel's sitting here in the back of an emergency cart now, various crew members checking with him, and now they will take him for examination. We'll have no word from him at this point.
Nigel, who was so happy about the championship, in fact, felt that he was probably at the happiest point in his life over the past couple of weeks. But he leaves this track prematurely and with injury, though nothing severe. We'll get an update from the IndyCar medical people just as soon as it's available. That brings us back to the front of the field. Nothing truly changes. Fittipaldi is still challenging.
There will be no golf tomorrow for Nigel Mansell, but he's already had 4 rounds at these glorious golf courses in the Monterey Laguna Seca area here.
So the order is Paul Tracy, then Fittipaldi. Leyendijk is 3rd. Scott Goodyear is 4th, followed by Al Unser Jr. Then Stefan Johansson is 6th, followed by Bobby Rahal, Teo Fabi, Mario Andretti, Robbie Gordon is 10th, then Raul Boesel and Adrian Fernandez. Gary Gerald, there could be some interesting tactics at play here.
Well, indeed, Paul, because there's a huge bonus at stake for Emerson Fittipaldi, let alone the individual pride in trying to get his 4th win to match Tracy's 4 this season. That Marlboro bonus that goes to the man who starts from the pole has built to $60,000 for this race. So if Emo can get by Tracy, he's got a huge payday in store. Now let's go to the Penske pits. We'll learn more from Jan.
Well, we checked with Emerson Fittipaldi's crew, and we asked, have you told Emerson that Paul Tracy's belts are loose? This was 3 laps ago. They said, no, we don't have to tell Emerson that. He is going to go after the win. Well, we now have a report that last lap they did call Emerson and tell him the problems that Paul Tracy were having. Obviously, they want him to smell the blood of that prey that he's trying to hunt down.
So while the battle at the front of the field continues on, just ahead of them is the ongoing fight with Al Unser Jr. and Scott Goodyear as they work their way through some traffic.
Fernandez is now between Tracy and Emerson. This is where Tracy got in trouble earlier. He was not prepared to slice through traffic, and this is where Emerson gobbled up his lead. Now he follows Al Jr.
Jr. not in contact with Goodyear. That's Mashusta just ahead of him. But again, as Derek suggests, you have to be so very careful in traffic, especially if you're Paul Tracy. And look at Fittipaldi! Fittipaldi pitches it off the course, over the barrier, into the tire wall, and Fittipaldi's race appears to be done. Let's see if he can get it started and get going. He's certainly going to give it a try. Will he bog down in that sand? So many others have. I think he's going to make it back onto the course. And Fittipaldi goes back into the fight. What an incredible piece of driving. He just drops one wheel off, does a quick spin, takes it to the barrier. Something must be broken on the car now, or a tire going down. Is the right rear coming down?
A momentary lapse of concentration and an indiscretion almost spelled disaster for Emerson Fittipaldi, and it allows Tracy to move ahead. Look at the dirt that's all over the rear tires and front tires of Fittipaldi's car.
Boy, did you call it at the start of this race that just that kind of thing is what could cost.
It's in a traffic jam. Emerson knows how quick he was before. He's trying to come inside. Mashusta tightens the line too much, loses it. But look what happens here. He goes on a buck and bronco ride and just misses. Oh, in fact, he did. He hits the tire barrier. There may be damage to Fittipaldi's car, but he managed to keep the engine running. Remember, he's almost a lap ahead of most of the field, so he can still continue, maybe in 2nd place.
They build the car strong in Poole, England, and Fittipaldi is trying to continue on, still being scored in 2nd place as he continues on the circuit.
Sometimes it looks easy, and when the world's best can get in trouble that quickly and that easily, it gives you an idea how difficult and dangerous racing can be. He tried to get down the inside of Mashusta Panasonic car, and here he goes for a wild ride up in the air, backs it into the tire barriers. Well, 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 how the face of the race can change in one tiny indiscretion.
And you can see, too, really airborne. There's a little dip in that corner. He got the right rear into it as he tried to avoid Mashusta. And, boy, that sent him around instantly.
So now the pressure comes off Paul Tracy, because suddenly the red and white Marlboro car that was in his mirrors and filled his mirrors suddenly disappears.
Let's go to Jan Mikas.
Paul, the Penske crew does not expect to see Emerson Fittipaldi here. They were able to see that on a monitor, and they thought for sure he'd be on pit road. But now they say he will try and make it to the end. Car not as severely damaged as first thought.
Just 4 laps to go now.
When we saw him run off the racetrack again, when we suspected maybe he had a puncture, I think it was just the tires covered in that sand and debris from being so far off the racetrack, and it took about 2 or 3 corners to scrub the tires clean again before he could get on his way. What a wild ride for Emerson.
But Fittipaldi, who stays in second place despite that ride and continues to soldier on now in the closing laps of the 1993 season for the IndyCar. What a season it's been, too. Paul Tracy still out in front. Fittipaldi second, Lyondike third. Fourth is Goodyear. Unser Jr. is fifth. Then Johansson, Rahal, Teo Fabi, Mario Andretti, Robbie Gordon rounds out the top 10. In 11th, Raul Boesel and Adrian Fernandez is 12th. That takes care of the point paint positions.
So the fight's over. Now it becomes a reliability run for Tracy, who's got those seat belts undone. That is scary. You can see there is damage on the rear wing of Emerson's car, but it didn't break it off. So Lyondike now still all alone in his best finish, a rostrum finish for Lyondike in his last race with Chip Ganassi's team.
And he's still not going to give it up at all. He's going to drive this thing right to the finish as hard as he can. As he flashes across the line, 81 laps complete.
His wife Mika is here, her first trip to a race after giving birth to twin boys. So Ari Lyondike is now a proud father of 5 children, all living in Phoenix, Arizona.
Still no report on Nigel Mansell and whether or not there's any seriousness to that right wrist injury. It didn't look like there was, but when that wheel spins around and the spokes of the steering wheel catches your hand, it can snap a wrist very quickly. He favored it at first getting out of the car, but then while he climbed on the emergency vehicle, he was seen to gesture with it, so let's hope he's okay.
Lyondike had a great run in qualifying, managed to qualify 5th. Believed he could have been much higher, maybe up on the second row beside Mansell, except he was blocked on his fastest lap by Nigel Mansell all the way down into turn 2.
Now the report comes from IndyCar. Nigel Mansell was checked by the IndyCar medical team and has been released, so no indication of any serious injury there. Tracy all alone works his way through the field. 82 laps complete, 2 to go.
Domination here by the Penske cars. Tracy has now lapped everybody all the way up to 4th place, which is now held by Scott Goodyear. But the interesting thing is, Tracy was not the fastest car on the racetrack. Fastest lap of the race is still held by his teammate Emerson at a 72.59. He did that time very early in the race on his first set of tires.
Well, Paul Tracy, one would have expected Nigel Mansell to be the master of the natural terrain road courses, but in fact, Paul Tracy has proven to be the road course master this year as he heads for yet another victory. Jens Wintrall with the white flag. The final lap of the 1993 PPG IndyCar World Series, and Paul Tracy merely has to hold on right at 2 miles now. He is unchallenged by his teammate Fittipaldi, who continues in second. Fittipaldi, in turn, is unchallenged by Lyondike. Scott Goodyear is in 4th. Unser Jr. is 5th. No one in challenge in the top 5 positions.
And if you look back at the what if he had won Mid-Ohio? What if he had won Milwaukee? What if he had won Phoenix? How that would have totally changed the face of this championship.
Paul Tracy climbs the hill for the last time in this 1993 season at Laguna Seca, down through the corkscrew, looking at the possibility of his 5th win of the season. As Derek suggests, what if this car, this man could perhaps have been the champion, but for 1 or 2 mistakes during the season. The final turn, the final straightaway ahead for Paul Tracy. And Paul Tracy climbs the hill, the Marlboro car, the Penske powered by Chevrolet, takes the checkered flag. Emerson Fittipaldi will come to the flag just behind Tracy, but Paul has done it. The Canadian has won at Laguna Seca. He rolls to a stop, the winner here at Laguna Seca in the Makita 300. And on the last lap, after he passed the checkered flag, he reached up and flapped out the right shoulder harness and took the last lap with the belts totally disconnected.
Don't underestimate how difficult and potentially dangerous it is to complete those laps at racing speed with the seat belts undone. However, adrenaline overrode the danger possibilities.
And second place, Emerson Fittipaldi is out of the car. The congratulations of the Penske team there as well. Paul Tracy won his first race this year at Long Beach. He's the winner here in the last race of the season.
Fifth place, Alan Jr. Sixth place to step up.
So young, so fast, and so good, Paul Tracy has taken the win. Now let's go to the Makita Power Tools winner circle with Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul Tracy came out of the car, and what was the first thing that you said about those belts?
Well, we caught that last group of traffic with about 25 laps to go. My belts came undone, and I was just trying to hold myself in the car under braking, and through the fast corners, I was almost falling out of the car. So I just had to, it was my call to either come in or stay out, and we decided to stay out and just keep going, and Emerson spun off the track, so I was home free.
When you think about it now, though, you were taking a huge risk, Paul.
Oh, a huge risk. If I'd have had an accident or something like that, it'd been a big problem, but I wasn't about to give up the lead that easy. I wanted to stay out there and get this last win.
The fact that you now have 5 victories to match Nigel Mansell, he has a championship. Special satisfaction, though, in matching him a number of wins?
Well, a little bit. You know, although we didn't win the championship, we've been able to match the champion's performance, and you know, we look forward to next year with 94 with the Marlboro crew and really try to put a championship effort together.
And some fantastic racing in the middle when you got in traffic and Emerson came right up behind you.
Emerson was really inspired. I was really struggling with the traffic to get by them. There was a lot of guys racing and weren't really looking in their mirrors because they were busy caught up in a battle. But you know, Emerson drove fantastic, and I can't say enough about the whole team. And it's just a great way to end the season off.
We congratulate you as we go to Jan Beekes.
Thanks.
Emerson Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy was just talking about how inspired your driving was. Hey, but you're all full of dirt here. You had a wild ride.
Well, it was a great ride, and then when I was diced with Paul, we were trying to pass Hero, and I think Hero went wide, all junior pass, and then Paul passed, and coming out of the corner, when I was just about to spin up, I tried to turn a little more. When I turned a little more, I lost the back end.
Do you think you could have caught him had that not happened?
Well, I think it would be incredible dice last 5-6 laps because I was running a little stronger than Paul. I had a little better grip than Paul, but you know, it was great for the Marlboro team, Penske 1 and 2, finish the season so competitive. I'm very happy.
Nice way to finish 93.
Thank you.
Emerson.
Thank you.
Penske team 1 and 2. It's unofficial, but there doesn't seem to be any reason for contest as Paul Tracy takes his 5th win of the year. Here are the unofficial final results, followed by Fittipaldi, who finishes 8 points behind Nigel Mansell in the championship. Then Arie Luyendyk, Scott Goodyear, Al Unser Jr., Stefan Johansson. Bobby Rahal, Teo Fabi, Mario Andretti, Robbie Gordon, Raul Boisel, and Adrian Fernandez picks up a PPG point. We look down through the entire field here. 29 cars started, and it is the 5th time that this race here at Laguna Seca has run the entire run without a full course yellow. This track traditionally produces some really great racing.
I think we definitely saw a true maturity from Paul Tracy this weekend in the way he dealt with traffic. Didn't fall into that big hole that has consumed him so many times. However, what have we got to look forward to? Tracy, Mansell, Michael, Gordon next year. We could be in for a barnstormer next year.
One last look at the final standings of the PPG points for the year, with Nigel Mansell as the IndyCar champion as a rookie, but Paul Tracy with a terrific